This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
Just figuring out the regulatory approval process was maverick Elon Musk's tweet on September 1st to a question on when will his aerospace company SpaceX-led Starlink start providing satellite internet in India. Thousands liked the response because this one tweet meant that soon you and I will not have to run from room to room hunting for connectivity. In the next few months, India's skies will see the likes of Musk's Starlink battle for space with OneWeb, which is backed by India's second largest telco Bharti Airtel and the British government. But hold on, e-commerce giant Amazon and the country's oldest conglomerate, the Tata Group, are also looking at this premium real estate in space.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff, 30 minutes after the hour.
The companies plan to launch tens of thousands of satellites into space to beam internet to customers on Earth. Elon Musk's SpaceX alone has announced plans to launch 42,000 satellites as part of its Starlink internet project.
They will soon have some company, as Amazon has plans to offer a competing service dubbed Project Kuiper, leading Elon Musk to call the online retailer's founder, Jeff Bezos, a copycat.
I asked the billionaire founder and chairman of Bharti Enterprises why he teamed up with the UK government to buy OneWeb.
This has been the holy grail, which is meant to finally resolve the problem of the last billion people on Earth who are not connected, and some critical applications, whether they are defense or strategic assets of various governments, to be connected to the satellite.
So let us figure out how satellites jostling in space will change your and my life. I'm Devina Sengupta and you're listening to the Morning Brief. The first person I dialed to understand this fight for satellite connectivity was my colleague Kalyan Parbat. He gets to know about any development in this area at a speed that will make many space investors envious. You have been tracking this whole interest in the satellite segment that has taken the country by storm. Everybody's talking about how to invest in the next satellite, how to improve communications using satellite broadband. Why is satellite connectivity, or satellite broadband as you call it, the next game changer?
One interesting point is that not too many people know that out of 75% of rural India still does not have access to basic broadband, even though we talk about 4G and 5G. A huge part of rural India and all the remote regions, be it mountains, be it forests, a host of inhospitable regions don't have access to basic broadband. And this has particularly come to the fore after COVID happened, when millions of people were just knocked out of the digital grid. Forget about fast internet broadband. They didn't even have reliable mobile connections. So that is what brought things to the fore. And obviously, there was a huge untapped opportunity for new age LEO satellite systems to really come in and tap into that opportunity to connect the unconnected.
LEO satellites stand for Low Earth Orbit Satellites, which position themselves not more than 2,000 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. The International Space Station, Hubble Space Telescope, India's satellite Bhaskara are examples of LEO satellites. They can be used for communications, taking images, military work. There are about 5,000 LEO satellites orbiting today. Beaming back to my conversation with Kalyan.
That's where a host of folks such as, Bharti-backed OneWeb, Elon Musk, SpaceX, Amazon, all these guys, and more recently Tata's with Telesat of Canada, they are looking at a huge opportunity in India, an emerging opportunity.
And when you say they are looking at opportunities in India, what does this mean? So, when these satellites come, how will they change your and my life?
So right now in India, satellite broadband is largely a B2B play. A satellite guy will offer the service to a corporate, which in turn has a network, which could be a VSAT network, and that is what connects and he uses the satellite network to offer connectivity to his core audience, which is the corporate audience. But now, what we are talking about is two things. One is the satellite company directly offers broadband connectivity through a B2B model, which could be to an enterprise, or the satellite broadband directly offers broadband or fast internet connectivity from space to the end user.
So, therefore, Kalyan, it would mean that tomorrow an
Mhm.
Amazon can
Mhm.
offer direct connectivity to my company if I have one, or it can offer direct connectivity to me as a consumer.
That is what somebody like Elon Musk is trying to offer. So he will have his satellite system, which will directly offer you a connectivity apparatus to set up in your house. You therein connect to his constellation, which is up in space, through a terminal and a Wi Fi router, where essentially your terminal, your satellite terminal, or an access system will connect to Elon Musk's SpaceX LEO satellite constellation up in space. The satellite signal is captured. The Wi Fi router then converts that satellite signal into Wi Fi. Then, whatever device you have, be it a laptop or a smartphone or a tablet or a smart TV, you just latch onto it like Wi Fi.
You can think of Starlink as filling in the gaps between 5G and fiber, and um, and really getting to the parts of the world that are the hardest to reach, the most difficult to reach, 3%, possibly 5%.
It sounds good. It sounds, right now, it sounds very Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy.
I mean, that's how it works.
But it's not so easy, right? Because there has been a whole team which has been saying that satellite connectivity is also going to be very, very expensive. And probably because of that, it may not be so easily picked up in India. Is that correct?
Yeah, the satellite broadband prices are prohibitive at present. And believe it or not, right, satellite broadband rates on a per GB basis are nearly 30 times more than mobile broadband. Say, for instance, if mobile broadband is about $0.7, which is about 50 bucks, the corresponding satellite broadband cost would be about $15 to $20 per GB, which is over 1,500 bucks a GB. Can you believe it? It's 1,500 rupees per GB. That is the difference.
I have just gotten very used to cheap data rates. So it's
Yeah,
getting very difficult for
yeah.
me. Therefore, if I get access to satellite broadband communications, my bills of mobile phone and my Wi Fi is going to go up.
Yeah, so obviously, the satellite broadband operators, whenever they arrive, they are too smart. They will obviously figure out something to make those prices more reasonable. So, what these guys are trying to do is work with local technology companies like Sasken and others. Bharti backed OneWeb is working with Sasken and an arm of the ISRO, which is called Ensign, to try and mass manufacture user terminals in India and bring down the prices sharply by 50 to 60%. So that'll take a while.
Is ISRO okay with a bevy of private players coming in and asking for the usage of satellite?
The Satcom scene right now in India, today as we speak, is a lot like what the telecom industry used to be pre 1995. That is before it got liberalized. Satellite communications is in a similar state. Department of Space, ISRO, they are the sole bosses around. The private players are there, but they are totally subservient to whatever ISRO and DOS, Department of Space, they decide. Even if you want to lease bandwidth capacity, you can't directly negotiate with a foreign satellite company. You need to go via ISRO, which is the commercial arm of the Department of Space. So that ends up jacking up the final cost of satellite, broadband. Yeah, that is a huge impediment. So which hopefully will get corrected in the new Satcom policy.
Satcom or satellite communications will be the future. And the government says that while operations from Indian soil may be allowed for Indian and foreign satellites, proposals envisaging use of Indian satellites will be accorded preferential treatment. When is the new SATCOM policy expected?
Last June, if I remember correctly, Nirmala Sitharaman had announced that there'll be a new SATCOM policy. So we're already over a year down the road. All the technical work is complete. It just requires an administrative nod, and it'll be due out shortly.
Tell me something. The way we hear about telecom spectrum getting auctioned, will there be any auction of any kind in the SATCOM policy?
So that is like the latest flashpoint between the telcos and the Satcom players. In fact, there is a little war which is going on between Reliance Jio and Bharti, because Bharti has they dipped their feet in the satellite waters, right? So whereas Jio is yet to even enter the Satcom space, there were rumors that it was closely studying the opportunity, but they haven't gotten to it. But obviously, somebody like the Bharti Group has a head start. Elon Musk has also announced India plans. Both OneWeb and Elon Musk are planning to roll out satellite broadband in India next year. Amazon is also expected to, start discussions with the government very shortly over things which are known as landing rights and market access. Telesat, we know they're coming in with the Tata. So obviously, there's a lot of action which is happening, and Geo has obviously missed the bus, at least for the time being. And Geo obviously sees a lot of competition coming in. So what they have said is that nobody should be able to access satellite spectrum for free. Whereas Sunil Mittal has said something diametrically opposite, that nowhere in the world is satellite spectrum auctioned. It should not be auctioned, it should be given through the administrative route. So that's where there's a fight going on.
Luke, I come from the world of telecommunications. Currently on my terrestrial networks covering 17 countries, I have over 250,000 cell sites, and not to talk about radio base stations, which may be over a million, but 250,000 towers, and I cover only 17 countries. With 658 towers in space, I'll be covering the whole globe.
Secondly, there is a second game which is going on between the telcos and the Satcom players, which is a broader fight. The telcos are saying that one of the principal satellite spectrum bands, which is the 28 gigahertz millimeter wave band, that is entirely being used by the Satcom guys right now in India. Now the telcos, we want 50% of that spectrum earmarked for 5G, because it is extremely good millimeter wave spectrum, which is perfect for 5G, and it will boost the business case of 5G, and it will help in deploying 5G at a more affordable price than what it is now.
Kalyan detailed out the satellite competition that should improve our daily connectivity and boost economic growth by connecting remote parts of the country where your fiber or telecom towers do not reach. But let me tell you some fun facts about a satellite. A satellite travels at 18,000 miles per hour. This means in a given day, satellites can travel the entire circumference of the Earth about 14 times. In 1957, Soviet Union shot the first man-made satellite into space. They named it Sputnik.
This is Russia on October 4th, 1957. On the launching pad is Sputnik Zemlya First, freely translated to mean traveling companion to the Earth. The Soviet Union is launching the first Earth satellite.
And since then, many countries, including India, have sent their satellites. India today has about 120 satellites in space. But how ready is India for this game changer? How long do the global companies have to orbit around the policymakers till a decision is reached? I spoke to TV Ramachandran, president of the Broadband India Forum, a think tank which looks into regulations and policies that will promote better connectivity. An advocate of satellite connectivity, Ramachandran deftly argues why satellites are the fulcrum for digital India. Mr. Ramachandran, in June, you had written about the importance of satellite communications. And right at the beginning of your column, you quoted Oscar Wilde. And you used these lines of Oscar Wilde, and I repeat the lines. It is a very sad thing that nowadays there is so little useless information. Very interesting, because right now in India, whether the information is useful or useless, we seem to need information all the time. We are the largest data guzzlers in the world. And how do you think satellite communication is going to help us get more data?
If Oscar Wilde were there today, I'm sure he would have slightly paraphrased his earlier quote and said, it's a very sad thing nowadays that information is not coming at speeds fast enough.
That's a nice take.
Thank you. India is currently, well, it's a great mobile first country, but its speeds in mobile broadband are 50% or even lesser than other countries. If you compare India with Brazil, it is just 50%. If you compare with US, India latest average is about 18, and US is 92 megabits per second. China a humongous 158, North Korea 189, and I'm talking strictly mobile between the countries. You go to fixed broadband, they're also the same story. So speeds are what everybody wants because we have to cope with a lot of data today for decision making. In that sense, what we are talking about in going to satellites, it is not only speed faster, but also getting delivered. So that being the case, satellites are there everywhere. Satellites can beam anywhere. They don't have a problem like you have to roll out fiber onerously for miles and miles into remote and difficult terrain. You don't have problems like setting up towers. Today, a lot of SATCOM capacity is going waste all over India because, and that is not our Indian SATCOM, foreign satellites which are going over India, which are approved foreign satellites, their gigabytes are going waste all over India every minute as we are talking. And if we have today, modern technology is so fabulous, there are policies and technologies to tap that and deliver it immediately to our disadvantaged rural brethren.
Would the satellite communication work in bad weather?
By and large, better reliability and availability will come from satellites. And that is proven from the mere fact that if you want to go to a disaster area and do work, you need only a satellite phone. So, Army works on that in remote areas.
Interestingly, while Kalyan had said how expenses can be a deterrent in satellite connectivity, Ramachandran makes a clear case on why satellite broadbands are the cheaper option in areas where access and lack of awareness can create hurdles.
Absolutely. I'll give you a very simple example which you can understand, Devina. See, suppose I wanted to reach some remote part of Northeast or a part of Chhattisgarh or anywhere where it's difficult. Imagine laying out fiber, rolling out fiber from the nearest town to all these forests and Chambal Valley and all that in very, very hostile terrain. And when you want to lay fiber, you just can't go and lay it. You have to go and take permissions from the local authorities. And in Indian system, the local self-government is very, very much involved in giving permissions. Without permissions, you can't dig, you can't lay fiber, you can't set up towers. So it becomes a very onerous task, very time consuming, and time is money. And just imagine if it gets cut by someone, some villager doing some kheti or something, then what happens? You're in massive trouble. So the cost of the rollout of terrestrial technology to remote areas goes up by a factor of 10 to 20 times as compared to urban. And that completely reverses the relationship with the satellite, which doesn't need towers, it doesn't need optic fiber, like that.
Important point when you mentioned that how accidental mistake can completely ruin all the broadband work that has been done and one has to redo it again. Satellite communications and 5G put together is definitely going to be path breaking for India. There have been discussions on how 5G can be used for healthcare, agriculture, and so many other areas which still are underdeveloped. So, how do you see satellite communications and 5G, the marriage? How do you see that happening in India?
So in 5G, one of the great things we all talk about in 5G is it has got massive bandwidth, high bandwidth speeds, and massive capacity. It can cater to a lot of devices, IoT. IoT is one of the strongest points in 5G, Internet of Things. In 4G, which is the technology we are all using now, a 4G can cater to only about 2,000 sensors or devices in a square kilometer. But in 5G, we are talking of catering to about a million, 10 lakhs of devices in a square kilometer. That is a fantastic amount. And yes, the terrestrial 5G that can deliver it. But I go back to the starting problem. The challenge is to reach terrestrial 5G to the remote and rural areas. It's not cost effective. And like everywhere, in every country, first it will be rolled out only in the urban areas. The businessman will see the viability, and for him it will be only in the creamy layer in the urban areas. So, how do the rural people get their field? In the fields, we want to see agriculture, use of IoT to improve the efficiency of agriculture. We want to see factories coming up in the rural areas which have got to go for digitalization. And that means high use of IoT. So the only way of getting 5G to the rural areas in the near term will be through satellites, and that can make massive IoT very possible in those areas, which will be useful for Industry 4.0 happening there.
Right. Mr. Ramachandran, what I don't understand is when the use cases of having satellite communications is so obvious, what are the challenges? Why are we still not seeing more companies come in or more satellites getting launched?
In SATCOM, commercial satellite communications, we are where we were 20 years ago in mobile. In mobile, at that time in 1995, even our adjoining neighboring countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, others had already rolled out cellular. They had analog cellular, of course, but they had cellular up and running. And we came in very late. But when we came in with a bang and we caught up. If the policies were right, then it would have happened. It had not happened for various legacy reasons, not any fault of anything, but it has happened due to our Indian legacy reasons. But last year, if you remember, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, she announced in her packages for economy, one of the packages clearly said we are going for a big facilitation of the satellite sector. And that was really sparked tremendous interest.
Today, private sector is also doing a lot of work in the space arena. A lot of individuals and startups have spent a lot of time developing space-related technologies. Unfortunately, because of the Indian regulations, they are even unable to use ISRO's available facilities for even testing their products. So what we want to do now, in order to provide level playing field for private companies, satellite launches and space-based services, we will make a provision for them to benefit from the assets which are available with the ISRO and for India to benefit from it. We'll also provide predictable policy and regulatory environment for private players. We want them to be co-travelers with us.
And then again, from the Department of Telecommunications, they came out with a beautiful modernization of the technology. So things have started happening on the policy and regulatory environment in India for SATCOM.
Satellites will usher in more information at speeds which ultimately mean millions of dollars for many companies. Both Kalyan and Ramachandran said that India is rightly positioned to join the space race. And thank you both for explaining a complex subject so well. As a child, I was told that if the shiny objects in the sky are not twinkling, then they are satellites. Maybe a few years from now, when we look up at the sky, the satellites will outnumber the twinkling stars. I'm Devina Sengupta and you've been listening to The Morning Brief. This episode was edited and coordinated by Anjali Venugopalan. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode. Do send in your feedback to The Morning Brief at timesgroup.com and share the episode on your social media networks. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. Thank you for listening and have a nice day ahead. All clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.